So it's Sunday night, and I just finished my weekly review of projects for the upcoming week, and I thought it would be cool to share my process for project management and especially related to creative pursuits. I use a very specific method developed by David Allen called Getting Things Done, which is sometimes referred as GTD by the geeks around the world. If you are familiar with David's work, you can skip ahead, or maybe you'll find this a cool reminder. And if you haven't heard about it, I think you'll find this very interesting, especially if you are a creative that is against organization. I certainly am, which is why I'm always recommending this. So this will be the first of a series of posts about this. And I will try in this one to summarize as best as I can the whole methodology and give you guys some tips on how to use the system with an artist's workflow in mind. Please know that I'm not an expert, but I do know the basics fairly well, and I'm always trying to refine ways on how to do this. Even David Allen says that it takes about 2 years to get this correctly, even for the best people. So bear with me, but I think there are some very cool nuggets of information and tips that he came up with that I use in my daily work. Even if I'm not productive, I would be even worse if I didn't have this. So there you go. As creatives, we usually have this aversion on getting organized because we think it will take away from our creativity and spontaneity. But David Allen actually said in one of his seminars, he said that, well, if you're a painter, you'll actually organize your brushes. If you're a photographer, you will organize your photo equipment and your photos. His idea is that our minds are good and they're made for having ideas, not managing them. As Jocko Willink said, I mentioned him in a couple episodes ago, that discipline equals freedom. And when you stop that cycle of thinking about what you should be thinking about, you actually are able to unlock new levels of creativity and freedom as well. The approach actually seems very straightforward on the surface. You have to ask yourself 2 questions of anything that has your attention. The first is what you're trying to accomplish, and what's your next action. And those things, when answered, they're put into these lists. One is a projects list, and the other is a next actions list. Incidentally, David says that he considers projects anything that has more than 2 steps to achieve. So buying groceries at the store and buying a company are projects in his view. But if you take a look at our to-do lists or our post-its in our computers or the notes on our phones, or God forbid, the links we save on our computers, we usually have this list of obscure, unidentified, and unclarified things. Things like mom, or a list to a website, or a photo that we took to remind us of something. But usually we don't clarify what those things mean to us. And David says that whatever you don't have clarified in your mind what it means, it holds a piece of you psychologically. In his system, he has basically 5 different phases for workflow management, which is collect, clarify, organize, review, and do. So today I'll just talk about the first part, which is already very, very interesting. That is about collecting everything that has your attention. It is particularly relevant for this podcast because if you go on walks regularly, you will probably notice that your mind wanders and you get all sorts of ideas. And when you are in the moment, you are sure you'll never forget them because they're obvious, they're in your face. And then the next obvious thing comes and you forgot the first one. Sounds familiar? So his solution is to write down everything that has your attention. Every idea, all those shoulds, coulds, ought tos, everything. It doesn't matter where you do it, but it's important to dump everything that has potential attention so that you can review later and put it all in one place. Also, you can decide to do something he calls a mind sweep. I do that in the morning sometimes, and especially if I'm feeling anxiety or if I'm irritated or if there's something that is bugging me and I don't know exactly what it is, I get a piece of paper or sometimes the notes on my phone if I don't have paper, and I write down literally everything that comes to mind. They will come in very weird strings. Sometimes you're thinking, oh, I should deal with this or that, and then something else pops up. But you should try not to organize those things. This is not an organizing tool. This is a collection tool. They'll come in things like, did that client get back to me about that thing? Or I need a new tripod, or cat food, or, well, I don't have a cat, but you get the point. And sometimes they will come things that you are not expecting to come, and they will be either painful or worrisome, things that happening around your world that you are avoiding, like what should I do about so-and-so person, or the conversation with your mom, or damn, I should be exercising. Anyway, doesn't matter, you write everything down. If you're walking, it is a good idea to dictate your notes on your phone. It's weird at first, but you can just grab the dictation tool and you just say what you're thinking about. You can review it later. You can also do like low tech and write it down on a piece of paper that you carry around. It's something that he actually recommends. The way that I do it whenever I write it on paper is I write keywords and something specific about the place where I wrote it. So I can say like nighttime, hill, and then the idea. So then it's sort of like a little trick for you to remember the context in which you had the idea, and then boom, the idea comes back to you. Still in this collection phase, David suggests that you look around your house, your emails, your papers, your books, your stashes of like whatever things you have around, and write down the list of ideas that are triggered by those items. Maybe the example he always gives is like you have these batteries that you need to go to the store and get batteries, and you always remember to get batteries when you see the old ones. And if you write down when you have the idea, you'll be able to actually review it later. To me, as a photographer and as a musician, and I think that applies to any kind of creative person, is that means also putting in all one place all your references, all your creative references. In my case, it's usually cool photos or music that I find interesting. And that can be very, very powerful. For example, instead of scrolling on Instagram and getting either anxiety or, oh, that's cool, or just being inspired by it and forgetting about it, you actually, on a consistent basis, collect those things, like can be in collections on Instagram, or take a screenshot with the explicit intent to review them later. The idea of that is that you will actually capture the things that are pushing or pulling on you creatively, and you can turn that into actual inspiration. That makes even the act of checking social media an active source of research if you're able to do this correctly. Whatever artworks you're drawn to, and today we're bombarded not only with information, but as artists we seek all these inspirational images and the environments and things. And if you see them all in one place, you are actually able to clearly see some patterns that were absolutely invisible before you put them all together. So that creative procrastination can be turned into inspiration for actual action. I'll probably talk about this more tomorrow, but this is a rough overview of the first phase of getting things done, collect. On another episode, I will talk about the second phase, which is clarify, meaning what to do with those things that you collected and how to approach it. And to me, that second phase is the most powerful and original in the GTD system. So my name is Pedro Bonatto. This has been Creative Walks, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.